Hello, welcome to Program with Sam, and this is C++ Lesson 4. So today we're going to be making header files in C++. Now Visual Studio makes this very easy to do, and in fact if you've actually watched the C series that we've done on the channel, you probably already know how to do this in Visual Studio, especially considering we're using exactly the same file structures and doing all of the C coding in the CPP format. So for the benefit of those that haven't done the C series, what we're going to do is go through it here as well. So to start with, in Visual Studio, we'll want to create a header file. Now, you'll notice in sort of the Solution Explorer, we have a folder called Header Files. If we go to that, right-click, we have the option to Add, and then we can add a new item. And if we click Add a new item, we can select Header File, and we can name it something like Math Functions, because we're going to basically use the same tutorial that we did in C. Math functions, that's the header file created. And what we're going to do in this file is we're going to declare the actual functions that we want. So much like last time, we're going to have double add, and it will take double A, double B, and bosh. Then we'll do the same for double sub, double A, double B, double mul, double A, double B, and double div. I'll come back and fix typos in a second. But that is the general process. So we've declared these functions, but obviously there's no function definition. There's no method bodies here. Like you'll see thus far, all we have is the actual name of the function and the argument it takes, as well as the return type. But there's no indication as to what the function is actually doing or how it's going to return anything. And if you sort of look closely in Visual Studio, you'll see that there's like a little green underline underneath the function names. And this is because it wants us to define the functions in a separate file. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a separate file that will essentially have the definitions of the functions, and this will just be a regular CPP file. So if we then right click the source files in this Solution Explorer, add new item, and we pick CPP file, but we call it the same name, math functions, that should then create a link, especially if we then include mathfunctions.h. Now if we go in here, we should be able to show potential fixes, create definition in mathfunctions.h. And it makes it, CPP even, it makes it very easy to do because you can literally just create the definitions in the function, in the CPP file. Get that last one. Perfect. So then if we go to the source file, we see that we have all of the function definitions. All of the function definitions for the function we declared. Admittedly, they're all returning 0.0, but we can change that. For this instance, we want to say a plus b. For this instance, we want to say a minus b. For this instance, we want to say a times b. And for this instance, we want to say a divided by b. Now that we've done that, we'll actually be ready to have a look and test them and include this header file in our own project. So we've seen the inclusion of header files before, like for instance, we do hashtag include iostream, like so, and that's the header file included. We'll just add using namespace std. But what if we want to include our own file, our own math functions header? Well, in that case, what we would do is include mathfunctions.h. And you'll notice that I've used quotation marks instead of the arrows here. And that's because, by convention, when you're using a custom-made one that isn't a standard library, or one that you've made personally, you will use the quotation marks. Honestly, I couldn't tell you why that is, but that's just the convention that is used. Now what we can do is we can actually test the functions. We can do cout to string, or rather we'll do a plus b, so, or if we say, yeah, 3 plus 4 is equal to, and then we'll to string, and it will be add 3, 4. And as always, Sam has forgotten to include a library that he wants. Include string. There we go. Perfect. And then we can actually just copy and paste this for the remaining few functions. So if we do it 4 times, and we just change that to, if we change that to sub, that to multiply, and that to divide, and then we just change this to sub, this to multiply, and this to divide, you'll see that it's correctly recognizing that the functions are there because they're coming from this file, although it's not liking that. Okay, so it's because it's getting confused with a different function that is available in the C standard libraries. The solution that we're going to do here is we're going to go math functions, and we're going to say namespace funcs, and then we're going to include all of this in there. Now what that should mean is if we go back here and we do funcs, and funcs, it should then resolve all of our issues, which it has. Perfect. And now we're finally ready to run the test. And of course, it failed. What was the problem? Unresolved double symbol. Right, so that is a problem with the fact that we're not then using the namespace here. So now if we run, it should, in theory, work. And there we go. It's outputted all of the information that we were after. And that's really it for header files. You can put other stuff in them like classes and stuff, obviously, but that's sort of like the basics covered for it. You have your header file where you declare the functions, and your CPP file where you define the functions. And obviously you can do namespaces, you can do classes, you can do structs, which we'll look at later on in the course. And next time, we're going to be taking a look at loops and control statements that are available in C++. We've already seen a few of them crop up as we've been going through the series. And obviously, if you've watched the C series, a lot of this will be overlapping and similar. But C++ does have access to some other sort of like nifty functionality. And we'll also be covering goto again and why you should never ever use it. If you'd like to follow me at ProgramSamBlog or follow the blog directly at programwithsam.code.blog, that would be much appreciated. And I will see you in the next one.